Whether you're hitting the road or kicking back in the cab, it's time to take a load off with Big Rig Banter. Powered by AllTruckJobs.com, your source for finding the trucking jobs drivers really want. Get ready to shift into gear and let the conversations roll.
All right, hello and welcome, truckers. The date is March 4th, and you're listening to the 49th episode of Big Rig Banter. I'm your co-host, Troy Diffenderfer.
And I'm your favorite co-host, Lene Rule. And today's episode is brought to you by the Pilot Flying J app, saving you time at the pump and money in the store. Now, you may be wondering what all you can do in the app. Well, you can reserve an overnight parking spot, you can book a shower, you can start fueling from inside your cab, and best of all, you can save money every single day on food, on drinks, on gear for your rig, and more. So go ahead and visit the App Store or Google Play Store and download the Pilot Flying J app today.
Thank you, Lene. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Troy. How are you?
Good. I see you have a nice, fresh cup of coffee in front of you.
Yes, with my almond milk. Thank you, Troy.
I know, for just listeners, so you know, for all the crap that Lene gives me, I just want it to be known that I went out of my way to get her a cup of coffee, specifically ordered with your ridiculous almond milk and 2 specific packets of sugar. And
yeah, Troy's amazing, and he really just wanted me to wake up, so.
Exactly. So I just want it to be known that I do these amazing, nice things for Lene, and now we have on-air proof of it.
So anyway.
Yeah, but how are you? What did you think of the game day we just had? We had an awesome game day in the office. We got to play, ping pong and different board games. Those following us on social media saw a beautiful picture of myself.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, be sure to go to our Instagram or Facebook page and check it out.
Yeah.
Game day. I am I don't know if you've noticed this about me, but I'm the least competitive person on the planet. And games are just not really my thing. But I will say I did enjoy watching Brett beat you at ping pong yesterday. That was fun. I did enjoy that.
I know. I'm totally the opposite, because growing up as an only child, I never really played a lot of board games, or I played video games because you can play them by yourself. So
right.
Even now, at 26 years old, I'm super into being competitive and playing board games and stuff, because I feel like I didn't get a chance when I was younger. Right. So now that there's people around and stuff like that, I totally love playing board games. And Lydia's not a huge board game fan, but when I can talk her into a board game because she's super competitive, then it gets really fun.
Gets really intense.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I never got into games. My sister is kind of mean. She always won at everything, so I just never wanted to play anymore.
Yeah, but I did think it was a lot of fun. It was a really cool company activity we got to do, and yeah, check out that picture. Lene, you always catch me in the best light, so thank you.
I know, it's my awesome photography skills.
Yeah, but
or it's just your face.
Exactly. But let's jump right into today's episode. We have a guest on the show talking about load boards. For those listening, it's going to be an important topic for many of you, especially if you're new to the load board game or want to know how to navigate that. We have some awesome tips from Todd Birch, so let's listen to that. All right, I'm here with Todd Birch, the product marketing manager at DAT.com. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, we're talking about load boards. I think it's something that a lot of our listeners are going to be involved in and they're going to be interested about. Why don't you give us a brief rundown of how a load board works, and why do so many truckers use it? Why do we hear that word load board all the time?
Yeah, a load board is I was given this example to use. It's basically like Match.com, for truckers and for brokerages. I guess a more updated example would be a tender. Mm-hmm. But basically, essentially, it's a centralized location where both carriers and brokers can go to basically tender freight. And so, for brokers and shippers, they can post loads that need hauling. For carriers, they can find available loads that meet their preferences. And at DAT, our responsibility is to create an environment in which they can make those business deals, that they can connect with each other. Yeah, and I guess the second part of your question, right? Why is it important? I was trying to think of like an accurate way of describing this, but essentially like a load board is like a Rolodex, for both the broker side, for both sides of the marketplace. And so if I was a carrier or trucker and I wanted to get new business, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to go out and find those loads, preferably with a shipper. But if I can't find that, I'm going to go look at a load board where I know brokers are participating. And that's kind of where we're at. We're facilitating opportunities for people to make new business or to keep their truck running or utilized throughout the day. And I think why load boards are such a common way, or like the most prevalent way of finding freight, especially in the spot market, is because it empowers both sides of the marketplace to do business the way they want to do it. You know what you want, how you want to do your business, so you can go out and kind of search, you can be more proactive in how you get that business.
And what are some tips that you would give a truck driver who's navigating a load board for the first time? It's definitely, I've looked around on DAT.com. It's very clean and easy to use, but I'm sure it's still going to be overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it can be overwhelming, especially if you're doing it for the first time. What we try to do at DAT is we try to really think about the user's experience and how we can make that as easy as possible. But to give you some tips, it's first of all, like, do your research. As any sort of like business endeavor, you would want to know what that other side of that business opportunity is thinking and doing. So you want to arm yourself with as much information as possible. So an example is, we at DAT try to provide as much data and information as possible through our product. We have trend reports. We have market rate information. So my recommendation would be to, leverage those tools to understand what is a specific lane paying before you start to interact with loads that are posted for that lane. Another is let a load board, our platform, DAT, work for you. We have this tool called, Post Your Truck, where you can go in and you can list your truck and you can say, hey, I'm in this origin location and I want to go to this destination, and let the load board work for you. Let it, brokers can come in and see that those trucks are posted, for those specific time, that specific type of equipment for that specific lane. And then the brokers can start actively reaching out to you. And then one of the last things kind of with research, if you are considering a load, one tip might be look at, once you get to that destination, try to do kind of a reverse search and see what is coming out. Because the last thing you want to do is, get to a place where there's a lot of trucks and not a lot of freight. So you always want to be thinking ahead. You want to think like, okay, if I go to one place, where's that going to take me? Or is this getting me to where I want to go? If you want to go back home, am I going to be able to get out? Things like that.
I like that you mentioned research a bunch of times. It's like, to use your Tinder analogy, it's like running a background check on someone to make sure they're not like a murderer.
Right. That goes to a kind of a big theme with us at DAT. We're about enabling trust. We want to remove uncertainty from the marketplace. So we're always thinking, how can we provide tools and services to both sides, to both brokers and carriers, that will kind of build that trust, that will kind of give that insight to make that business decision move faster, so you can kind of make a decision with confidence.
And I know you mentioned some of these factors that come into play when you're doing research. What are some other factors that maybe might make a trucker swipe right on the load board if they decide to choose a load? What are truckers looking for when they're kind of browsing?
Yeah, the swiping right. I think I would be doing a disservice to your listeners if I said that the top reason to swipe right would be anything but like a rate per mile. I think that's what we hear the most from a DAT perspective is what am I going to get paid? And we know that's important for people to understand, like that, they want to, if they have a load and it meets their criteria, you can't do it for free, or you can't do it for something that would not, help your business grow or bring a profit or put money in your pocket. So, I mean, that's the number one reason is like, is the pay right? But like that's only like the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a reason to book a load. There's many other factors that go into why that load would be great for you. And it kind of like my thought is like that saying where one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Mm-hmm.
There's sometimes there's opportunities if I'm a driver or carrier to pick up a load that it might not seem appealing to someone else based on the rate, and because that's maybe that this one carrier that's picking up this trash per se has thought about how are they chaining does it like how is it chained together, or how does it get me home for my kid's baseball game, or there might be other factors that are playing into why they would do that for a lower rate. It could just be they're better at modeling their business or planning for the future. So that's the other thing. There's other criteria that go into it. And you can do that research all through DAT. You can understand like what's the equipment type, what is necessary, like the weight of the load, those types of factors.
And how do changing freight rates and other factors affect not just you, but the truckers using your site? I mean, it's no secret that the industry definitely can fluctuate for the better or the worse. How does stuff like that affect your business and just truckers in general using load boards?
That's an interesting question. I think from an outsider's perspective, you would think that changing rates would have probably a negative impact on load boards. But at DAT, what we know, we've been in this business for a very long time. We actually see a lot of activity, whether the rates are down or up, and it's a different activity based on what needs to be done. So when rates go down, what's happening, is like there might be a lot more volume on the platform from the broker side. They need to put those loads on because shippers are shifting their strategies potentially from contract freight to spot market, because that would be a potential opportunity for them to save money. So we see a lot more loads, but from a carrier's perspective, there's a lot more competition. There's a lot, you need to have a stronger business model to understand how do you what the impact of taking that load or chaining that together. So there might be from a carrier or from a truck driver's perspective, there's more competition. There needs more planning involved. When the rates are high, carriers might be looking into growing their business, so they might be doing research using our rate forecasting tools and data to understand how do they maybe take on a new lane, or how do they expand their business, or how do they add a truck, and what kind of loads could they pick up if they did that. So in both the down and ups, there's always a large amount of activity, because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're facilitating business, and these loads are being moved no matter what the rates are. It just depends on what type of business models exist and which ones are going to thrive in those environments.
And I mean, you've been involved in this industry. How has load board technology changed, say, in maybe the last 10, 20 years? I'm sure, I mean, obviously with the rise of the internet and things like that, but I'm sure there's multiple competitors, and, the industry definitely has changed.
Yeah, at DAT, we've been around for a long, long time. And I know you said past 20 years, but I mean, DAT has existed for 42 years. So we've kind of have a little bit more insight. Yeah. We started as Dial-A-Truck at Jubich Truck Stop in Portland, Oregon back in 1978. And back then, this is where the name load board comes from. It was literally like a bulletin board and notes and sticky notes that you would see on that board. Truck drivers would come in, they would look at that, see if there was a load that matched where they wanted to go, and then they would try to call that shipper, that broker, to book that freight. So we've seen it from the very beginning all the way until where it's at right now. So if I was to use just based on your question, 20 years ago, I mean, we've seen a lot of advancement in technology in the past 20 years, the biggest being the advent of the mobile phone, which plays nicely into the trucking business. Most of their business is done, in a mobile environment. It's become a really big tool for them. being able to access freight at any time along, as a truck driver has been really important. So in the past 20 years, we've seen load boards go from being this only at a truck stop location or this physical load board to being put onto the internet, it's gone from like load board to dial up, from a fax to like dial up internet to now you can access it on your mobile device. And so I think what we're seeing, and I just wanted to do a plug for this. I know there's this huge trend now to move, like, what's the next phase of like load boards, and they call it digital freight matching. But the idea is that we've been digitally matching freight since 20 years ago when we started out. We started putting our service online. So load boards have gotten smarter, more intelligent. We've offered more filters, more search opportunities. We've given you more data to make those decisions to match if you're a truck driver with a broker that meets your preferences. So that's kind of a trend that we'll continue to see. We'll see accessibility. You'll be able to access the load board anytime you need to, at all hours of the night, non-business, traditional business hours, to also it's going to get smarter. It's going to be able to understand your hours of service. It's going to be able to understand your preferences, and that search will be a lot more intuitive. It'll be also more streamlined based on what you need at that moment.
That is awesome. I'm always excited to hear about, the new technology and the future and where the industry is going to progress. And Todd, I thank you for coming onto the show to talk to us. I think there's going to be a lot of truckers that are going to appreciate this information. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, if you won't mind a shameless plug, we just released a feature called Book Now, which is kind of feeding into that trend that we were talking about of getting smarter, being more accessible. Where now that you can, if people are familiar with the DAT load board, now there's an ability to go onto the load board, find the load you need that meets your preferences, and you'll be able to click through, go straight into the broker's kind of portal experience to book that freight. So we've reduced the amount of steps necessary to negotiate those rates, and enable you to kind of say, hey, I want that freight, book it in lesser steps, and go get to what you maybe enjoy doing, which is driving or working on other parts of your business.
Awesome. Well, I think a lot of our listeners are going to definitely check that out. Once again, that's Todd Birch from DAT.com. Todd, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Wow, what a lot of great information there. Big thanks to Todd and Troy for that interview. If you like what you hear, be sure to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks again, Todd. We appreciate it. But I think that wraps things up. Lene, don't forget to turn your clock forward. We're springing forward in 4 days?
Sunday. I am so excited for the time to change. More daylight.
I know. That's going to be awesome. But once again, I'm your co-host, Troy Diffenderfer.
And I'm your favorite co-host, Lene Rule.
And this has been Big Rig Banter.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Big Rig Banter. For your next job, check out alltruckjobs.com, the premier online source for finding the best driver jobs in the country. Browse hundreds of positions by freight or driver type to get back on the road with confidence. Click subscribe to keep the conversations coming. Until next time on Big Rig Banter.